a good thing they announced that, you know. It's good to know when you're being recorded.
Yes, it is. Okay, let's get this over here. Okay. Can you get the light? I think it's the middle one. No, I think it's the closest one. One of them's right. Which one was it? Middle one. Okay. Last time that we were looking at Israel, we looked at the Sea of Galilee. And if you remember with the Sea of Galilee, there's a lot of things recorded there. Anybody, youngins, so Wagner kids, anyone remember about roughly the percent of time that Jesus spent in that area at Galilee? You guys remember that? Any adults remember that?
I don't remember you saying it, but I can make
Make a rough guess.
Yes. I don't know. I'm curious to find out. I would think 75%.
70 to 80% of his time was spent around the Sea of Galilee. Now think about that. You've got all this time that Jesus spent in that one little area, and that became that's where all the stuff happened. A lot of miracles happened there. It's almost like a holy place within itself. That is the place where Jesus chose to spend a ton of his time. And in the place we're going to be looking today, Jesus chose to leave, and think about that. He chose to leave this holy place, this place that's been experiencing all his miracles, and we're going to go up north, way up north, and we're going to go up really close to Tel Dan. Okay, now we looked at Dan. This has probably been a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, but we looked at this Tel Dan. Who can tell me a little bit about what happened at Dan? One thing. A certain king went there.
Did Saul after he?
No, well, he might have, but I don't remember that one. It's not the one I'm thinking of, so I'll say it's wrong. A big deal happened at Dan. We had pictures of it, of the place. Okay, here's the clue then. There's one at Dan, one further south in the northern kingdom. What happened up at Dan?
The places of worship, calves were set up.
Places of worship. The calf was established. King Jeroboam went up there and made this calf so that the children of Israel would not want to go, of the northern nation wouldn't want to go back down to Jerusalem, get their allegiances back with the southern kingdom and leave him. He set up his own gods. That area up at Dan where this happened is literally 5 minutes away from Caesearea Philippi. The area is right there, and the reason I say that is they're very similar. That area is right up at the border. It's at the outskirts of getting out of Israel, and you'll think you're out of Israel. It was pagan. Now, what does that name tell you? Caesearea Philippi. What kind of a name does that sound like?
Caesar and Philip.
Caesar. It's a Roman city. Caesarea Philippi is a Roman city, and the Romans, they all served a plurality of gods. They loved having their God, the multiple gods, and we still see that today, all over the place in the world. But this area was forbidden by the Jewish leadership for Jews to go to. It was that pagan, and that's part of what we're going to be seeing in this passage and in the pictures we're going to be seeing tonight. But think about this. This is a wicked, wicked area, and Jesus intentionally took his disciples away from the holy place, away from where he's doing all this work, where he is at, where he's based. He took them away from where it was comfortable, and he took them up where the Jewish leader said, this is a forbidden area. You Jews don't go, good Jews don't go there. That's where Jesus took his disciples so he could teach them an object lesson. So that being said, I'm going to start with some pictures. These are ones that happened just after we left Caesarea Philippi. So you're going to see everything probably with time done. You can't see this very well. Here we go. So I put the moving picture a little bit, but right there, I don't remember what was going on in this picture, but there's an animal right there. So when I move this, you should be able to see it move a little bit, and I'll say something which is embarrassing, I think, but there it was. You see it bobbing its head? I think so. But it's just it was a weird thing we were tracking. And we were trying to get up to where we could see it, but he was running all in this area. So we got his picture, and that's the best I could get of this thing. But this area had this is unusual to see a lake like this size. This area is desolate. There's not much out here. This is where we stopped for lunch, and this is about all there was. And this is why I didn't buy a lot of lunches. These lunch plates like $15, $16, $17. I don't remember the name. Pete, you told me earlier. What is that thing called?
Falafel.
Huh?
Falafel.
Okay. That was very popular. And this gives you an idea just of the plate size you get. So you get a few fried things, you get the sandwich, but they were good. They were really good. But this is just kind of life up there. Everything is dead. There's nothing much around here. And then there's this barren parking lot. You can see where they're bringing all the supplies in to eat. There's just not much life up here. It's so the area itself is just barren, and everything up there is tourism. Now, as we're getting now into Caesarea, so that was after Caesarea, this is before Caesarea. This is the first thing we hit as we're going into this area. And you'll notice here's some of the rocks, the rock faces we're heading into, but you've got this. And just these towers where they have the Muslim calls to prayer. And these things are just eerie. I don't know if you've ever heard one. And over there, we heard them often, but they're eerie. And it's all these people are blinded, and this is all they have. And again, it should cause us to feel pity for them. And you really do. But as we passed this, we came into this area. Now, all this is some of the remains of the temple, and they brought them out and tried to, these are ones I can't read, but these are remains of the temples that were there. And these temples were big, they were very, again, pagan, but these remains, I want to give you a little bit of the background for this, because here's what had happened. Herod the Great, and we talked about him this morning in the service. Herod the Great built the Temple Mount, 35-acre Temple Mount. He built Caesarea Maritime. He built Masada. He built several fortresses where he could escape because he was scared of the Jews. He was a master builder. The guy was really good, but he built this place. And you're going to see a drawing of what they believe one of the temples looked like, but he built it and he gave it to his son, Philippus. So there's Caesarea Philippi. So the city was named after Caesar, to honor Caesar, and then after his son Philip, because he gave it to Philip. And it has a spring that comes out of it. And that spring, I'll probably hit this in a minute, it used to come out of this cave. It would flow out, and it still is one of the 3 major tributaries to get into the Jordan River, to fuel the Jordan River. There's a lot of water coming out of here. In fact, remember I said this is at the northern part? This is like in the foothills of Mount Hermon, which is the snow cap. This is where they get a lot of their water that comes into the Jordan and gives water for the country. This is where in the foothills. So that water is coming through springs underground, and it used to come out of that cave. Now it just comes out of an underwater spring. We'll cover that too. But in the winter and in the spring, there is abundant water here. And this is the key thing I wanted to tell you about with this. This area right here, remember I said the Jews despised this. This was not a place for good Jews. They called this place the gates of hell. This is the gates of hell. And the Jews were very serious about, you do not go there. They called it that because of all the idolatrous worship that happened in this place. So let's look, let me see. I don't want to get ahead. Okay, I had taken this, you're going to see a better shot of this. I left the moving picture up here because I wanted you to see, you're still got good water source coming through here right now, but that area right here, this is like the only landing, the only place, and so it's believed this is the area where Jesus would have been with his disciples as they're looking up at the gates of hell. As they're looking at all this idolatrous worship, Jesus is sitting most likely right in this area, staring up to these rocks and staring at this mountain and this worship that's happening. So Herod the Great built this place. He built it, and his temple that he built was the temple of Augustus, which is for their god Zeus. And he built that around 20 BC over that cave that we saw. And we'll see that cave a little bit more, but as time went on, more idolatrous places were built, and we'll see those as well. So the water came through that cave. Now, and that cave, I need to get to a different picture. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get everything in one shot. There, that cave with the monument thing that was over it is where they would offer sacrifice, and it was human, usually little ones. They would offer sacrifice in this cave with the water that was running out so that things would flow. It was just it was a horrid place where, and you can see why the people would say, don't go to this ungodly existence. So as you work up, and again, we'll see it as you work up this way from this cave where that temple of Zeus was, as we go up here, we're going to see one to Pan. They have things carved out in these rocks where they would put their idols. So we'll see all of these things as we go through this. Before we start those pictures, Matthew 16, verses 13 to 16. Who has that passage? Matthew 16, 13 to 16. You got it, David? Yeah. Okay.
When Jesus came into the coast of Caesearea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, "Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" And they said, "Some say thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, some and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He said unto them, "But whom say ye that I am?" And Simon Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God."
Okay. Verses 1 to 12, they had been down learning lessons at the Sea of Galilee. They're in a place they want to be. They're in a place, it's a wonderful place to be. And they leave that, and verse 13, as David read, they came to Caesarea Philippi. It would be kind of like us saying we're in some of, God's wonderful country. Everything's great. And we went to Chicago, or we went to New York City. We went into a slum area. We went into an area that's just pagan. And I would say this, we're living more and more in a pagan land. We're living in a place where people need to better understand who Jesus is, just like they did here in Caesarea Philippi. And that is going to affect how these disciples, as they go there, it's going to affect how them and how we react to an ungodly world. Jesus wants them, and he wants us to understand this truth that we need to react in a correct manner, have a correct mentality, these verses of who Jesus is, what his job is, what he desires for us. Okay, who had 17 to 19? Okay, read those for us, please. chapter 16, verses 17 to 19. Okay, so when he makes that statement, you are Peter. Remember what does Peter mean? What's the name mean? That little stone. And then he said, on this rock, on this big stone, I'm going to build my church. Now, just keep in mind what you're looking at. They've got all these little stones that we saw a minute ago that were down by that water area. And now you've got this massive stone. On this rock, I'm going to build my church right on top of all of these pagan altars. I'm going to build my church on this huge stone. I'm going to build, and the gates of hell, keep that word in mind, gates of hell. Be thinking on that. And here's the question for that. What is a gate? What does a gate do? What does a gate do? We'll come back to that one. But nothing is going to stop his church. He's going to build this thing. So what I want us to do right now is look at some of the pictures that are up here of the temple area. And they're interesting pictures, but listen, there is nothing good about this area. All of this is pagan. So here is the first temple gate, or the first temple would have been right here. Okay, I've been there. There we go. Here's a panoramic shot. So right here is where the temple for Apollos. This would have been Pan. This would have been up in this area is where they had like a goat grotto type area where they would have, it was just licentiousness. It was the dancing and they would have people, fertility acts, and it was a disgusting place. I took this moving one here because it helped me to show, if you look here at the base, the intricate tile work, the stone work that they had, it was beautiful, but that was right at the base. There's your cave. All that was part of the temple that was flowing into this cave, and the water flowed right out of it. Another one of that cave. Okay, so as we come up to the right from that cave, here are some of the carvings and things where the idols would go for the various deities they had. I believe this was the one for Pan. Okay, this is a rendition here. This would have been the one that Herod had built. That's the one for Augustus. And I don't know if you can see it. Here's a listing of them here. But this was Augustus. The next one up is Pan. The next one, Memphis. The next, Zeus, Nemesis. Okay, this is the one for the tomb of sacred goats. And then the temple of Pan. Another one up here. These areas, all of this licentious stuff is happening. It is constant. People cannot, if you go there, it is with the express purpose to sin. It is doing wrong. The whole area is pagan. I blew it up a little bit here so you could just see, hopefully a little bit better. This is where they would have people dressed up as goats doing their dances with other people and all of this. This is the one where they did the child sacrifice in this. And there's the cave that would have had the water flowing out of it at the time. This is another artist rendition of it that looks better. But that's what that area was like. This is just some of the close-ups. So we had the temple of Zeus. They think that was built around 100. So it continued after the time of Christ, continuing to build on to all the things that were here. So you have all of these different types of gods that were around, and obviously they're gone now. This just gives you a picture of what was happening. And all of this is going on. Okay, we got to stop here. All of that was going on till about 200 AD. And on this one, I'm gonna make a mistake when I'm talking because I'm gonna point down here. That's the one for Apollos or Augustine, and I'm gonna say it's Pan, I believe Pan. That's the next one. The one that I mentioned is one up, so I was off in what I was saying here.
Go from down below. This is Caesearea Philippi. The area down here where this cave is, that was the cave for the god Pan, where they would sacrifice humans. There were
Augustus,
different
Zeus.
gods. There's one place here, there's another one over here, and there was one over here. Pan, here's some of these, that's some still shots for these as well. This is what they would refer to as the gates of hell, because there was all of these pagan gods that were worshipped in this area. So when Jesus met with his disciples, this is where it was down this hill here, and I'll do another shot from down there for video in a minute. This is where he said, the gates of hell will not prevail against his church. And this is an allusion that he was using to that. So we'll go more for that from the bottom.
These are just more of what's left of some of the temples that were there. They were obviously destroyed. This word here, Banias, that was, I think, Byzantine era. They changed the name Pan to Ban. Banias is the god Pan. So these are things from that temple that was made in honor of that god Pan. Here's more of those, and obviously just destroyed. So
That water looks so clear.
that water is absolutely gorgeous. It made you want to jump into it. It was nice. It's coming from an underground spring.
Oh.
And that underground spring is from snow melt up above from Mount Hermon, going down, and coming up through the spring. And it's interesting. We'll hit that in just a minute on one of these videos. But he's saying here, the gates of hell will not stand against his church. So gates. What type of I don't like this word, weapon. What type of a structure is a gate? Is it offensive or is it defensive? It's defensive. The gates of hell won't stand against his church. Okay, so what is it? He's not saying here that hell is coming out. The gates of hell, they're trying to come and rush the church and they're not going to prevail. We're going to win. He's saying the gates of hell, they don't have a chance. And what does that imply about the church? So what are we supposed to be on? Offense or defense?
Storming the gates of hell.
We're to be offensive. How many times and maybe you haven't heard this said, I've heard it in my past, that sometimes we hear about, Christians, you need to be coming to the church. This is your safe place. This is where you come. Come to the castle and be safe. We need to be storming the gates. We don't need to be retreating. We don't need to be getting away from the world. We need to be, and we're gonna hit some passages. Let's just go ahead and read these. John 17:14-17. Who has that? Okay.
And when they were come to the multitude, there came to him I'm sorry, I'm Matthew.
Okay, that didn't sound right.
I have given them thy word, and the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but that thou shouldest keep them from the evil. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth.
Okay, so we are supposed to be on the offensive. We just said we could describe that as evangelism. We are to be, a lot of times when I'm praying, I'll pray, God, would you please help me to advance your kingdom in some way today? Help me to do something. Help me just take a chunk out of a gate. I don't know what it means, but help me to advance your kingdom. And we need to do this. We're called to do this, but there's gates. And if there's gates, that means there's going to be resistance. We should not expect to be rushing up and coming in, okay, use an example, evangelism. We shouldn't expect people to be saying, I want what you've got. This is just everything. There shouldn't be this, fervor to want to come. There's going to be resistance, and it's going to be satanic resistance. He's blinded the minds of them that don't believe, and there is resistance. So my question for us for just a minute is this: what are some of the resistance things that we hit today? What are some things that oppose us giving truth or oppose our truth? Can you give me one? It's a hard question. I had to think a little bit, and this is probably one of those I'm asking that I'm not wording very well.
Well, there's widespread mentality that Christianity is intolerant of others, it's hateful, and that it has been used for all kinds of evil purposes, crusades, and slaughtering of Native Americans and slavery of blacks and a bunch of things, which honestly, those evil people who did those things did them in the name of Christ. They were not of Christ, but they claimed to be of Christ. So yeah, we've got some hard, misconceptions to overcome in some people's minds.
Okay. What else?
The accuser of the brethren.
Yes. Absolutely. The accuser. Have you ever heard a statement like, well, that's your version. That's what you think. That's your version of truth. It's like today, there's almost more of an acceptance, a thought of my feelings and my opinions are just as important and just as valid as your truth that you're giving. That's my truth, and that's your truth. You've got your opinion, I got mine. There's no absolute truth. And it seems like that's been, even in my young days, it's like there was, even back then, there was still this mentality of, okay, yeah, the Bible says this, and yeah, that's truth. And people didn't want to fight that battle as hard as they do today. It's just getting worse. That truth is, multiple truths, I should say, is a very accepted thing.
Or just absence of truth.
Yes.
So postmodern relativism in some people.
One I ran into multiple times recent. People like to write their own Bible and invent their own God. And their God is the one who God just wants me to be happy. It doesn't matter what I do. God just wants me to be happy. And if this makes me happy, then this is okay with God. And they write their own script for, this is what I want. So this must be of God. If it feels good, it must be right. And that is, it is a tactic that the evil one likes to use, and it keeps people blinded, and it makes our job sometimes, it puts up the gates, but those gates will not prevail against Jesus' church. Jesus is in the process of breaking down barriers, and we need to desire to be a part of that process. And that was a good challenge as I looked at this place. Now, what's happening here, and these words that he's using, this is just before Jesus goes to the cross. This is just before he is going to be killed. He's going to be resurrected. He's going to give the Great Commission. You are to go. You are to make disciples. It's not long before all of this is going to be starting. So let's look at one more passage. Who has the long one? Matthew 16, 20 to 27. Was that yours? Okay.
Then charge on his disciples that they should tell no man that he is Jesus Christ. From that time forth began Jesus showing to his disciples how he must go into Jerusalem, suffer many things of the elders, chief priests, and scribes, be killed and be raised again the third day. Then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, "Be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee." But he turned and said unto Peter, "Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men." Then said Jesus unto his disciples, "If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profit if he shall gain the whole world, lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, then he shall reward every man according to his work."
So if you think about what's getting said here, the timing's interesting. This is just before going to the cross. And the words, they sound so strange in a sense, because the first thing he says is, stop telling people that I'm the Messiah. Stop telling people this. And you think, you want people to know this. Think of it this way. He's saying, stop pushing that I am come to set up my messianic reign. Stop pushing this, because I'm about to go, next verse, I'm about to go die. I'm going to be killed. This setting up my reign isn't going to happen. I'm going to go, I'm going to be crucified, I'm going to rise again from the dead. The way that you're thinking it's going to happen is not going to happen. It's going to be a different way. And then Peter says, I don't think so. You're not doing this one, God. You got to stop this. And Peter is totally against what he's saying to do. And he says, Satan, get behind me. And then he brings up that verse. You've heard us, we've quoted this so many times. You've got to deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. Even when things are not going in the way we may think is best, we've got to get on board with Jesus' plan, and we've got to follow his plan. We need to line up with him and put our own agenda aside. We've got to follow Jesus totally. And that's what Jesus is pushing here. I'm going to be gone. Your goals are really changing. You need to follow me, and you need to be on board with this. Deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me. And he's pushing that one really hard with the disciples there at this pagan place. So I've got a few videos here I want you to see. You remember a minute ago, I showed you the one pic and I said, this is probably the area where Jesus was talking. This is just a better angle of it. This would have been the area that was built up somewhat and not right in the way of the river. So this was probably the area, and that's where we were there looking at stuff at the beginning. But there's mostly videos coming through here.
Okay, this is the base of the rocks that we were just at. This stream, I believe this is Herman, it's the third largest water source for the Jordan River. And some of the things that are interesting is this area right over here where we were before. This is where that area where Jesus would have been speaking with his disciples when he said, who do men say that I am? And then Peter said, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. That is where Jesus made the comment about Peter being the little stone. And upon this large stone, he would build his church, being Peter's confession. Now, while he's here, one of the pictures that you would have had in mind is what we had just looked at up here with the rock. Now I need to get a little bit further away. Those are the sacrifices were taking place. So when Jesus said the gates of hell will not prevail, that's what they referred to those rocks as. Those rocks were referred to as the gates of hell. So Satan's worship would not have become your church. One of the other things that was pointed out was that this water source reportedly used to come from the cave where the human sacrifices were made. And there was an earthquake that occurred around 33 AD, which very well could have been when Jesus died, and there was an earthquake. And according to Josephus, I mean, you can't back that up, but according to Josephus, though, it shifted the water source. And this river that we're looking at this point, at that time, stopped coming from the cave, and it started coming from an underground spring. So the source of life, if you will, from that idol worshiping center changed, and there is no power there. Our power is in our Lord Jesus Christ, and it's just a beautiful representation of it.
That was very interesting to me, that they think that when it occurred at that point in time, I'm assuming there's not tons of earthquakes that are happening, but that earthquake was a special one. And it was not just natural. I believe it was probably a God-sent earthquake. And it could have had, if it would have changed the gates of hell at this point, it's an excellent picture. This is just showing it right at the base where the spring originates, and it's just a life-giving spring. And that's what our Lord is. He gives us life, and that should be exciting for us to think on.
Okay, this will be the last video. This is an awesome place. And here we have, this is the life-giving springs here, coming from the Sherman River. They're all coming from an underground spring. And the gates of hell, representative that idolaters worship, multiple pictures up there. The gates of hell will not prevail against the Church of Jesus Christ.
And that was our final shot. This was one of my favorite areas that we went to, just to see how Jesus has conquered. It's not that he will conquer. He has conquered, he is conquering, and the gates of hell, they don't have a chance. They're not going to stand against Jesus. There will be resistance, but we as believers are called to be in this fight. And as we resist that, we're resisting what he said to his disciples, you are to do. We are to go and we are to be attacking those gates with opportunities that we have. So, your turn. What are some truths that we can learn from this portion of scripture? Give me one.
I never thought of it from the perspective of the gates of hell. It's not prevailing against the church, but rather prevailing against the onslaught of the church. That's a very helpful perspective. It does set the tone for what our stance should be, not defense, but offense.
That's good. That's good. What's another one? I can start my list. I've got 5. I like the fact that he went up to this area that was just totally pagan. And sometimes I get this mindset. I've had this mindset where, this person, they're just too far gone. I don't need to be, I can't waste I'm not going to waste time. They gross me out, whatever. They're not too far gone. In the middle of a pagan culture, we are to freely proclaim Jesus. We're to attack those gates. And our culture is getting more and more pagan. And so we need to have this mindset that we proclaim Jesus. He's God come in the flesh. He's the one we worship. He is God, and we need to worship him. And we need to do that very freely and actively. How about anything with Peter's comments? You ever have times when it just doesn't make sense? And I can't give you good examples on that right now, but there's times I just don't want to do this. I don't want to do it the way that God has designed. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. And it didn't make sense to Peter, but we are to deny ourselves and we are to follow Jesus to the death. there are no options. Jesus told Peter, get behind me, Satan. You're an offense to me. You need to deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. It's about what my ways are, not your ways. And that was a very important one. And Jesus does take us to places that are purely pagan. There are things that we see in our culture today that he drops us right in the middle of some people, and they need light. They need us to be the light of the gospel. He'll drop us in those places. And we need to be actively participating with him as we go through into those places. Those are the ones I had. Questions, comments?
When, your guide, was there, he's a messianic too, right? He believes Christ was Messiah.
Yes.
Did he, was there anything like, I don't know, odd in the way that he interpreted some of these things that was kind of off, but I don't know, because like was a Jewish perspective different from, I guess I don't know the question I'm asking. Like what was his perspective on like Josephus and stuff, because Josephus says a lot of things that are interesting. And it's like, oh, cool, but like you said,
You can't
you can't
depend
back
on
it
it.
up. What was his opinion of like stuff like
Same.
Same. Okay.
Yeah, he had over there, they don't call it, here we would call it like a liberal and a conservative view of scripture, or a literal and a not literal. They call it minimalist, maximalist, or something like that. But it's the ones who take the scripture for what it says, and that's the group that he would be more aligned with, would be our conservative type literal interpretation. And so he doesn't, he'll tell you what is said, he'll tell you what history says, and he'll say, but our Bible says. And he was good about going back to that. And I don't remember the specifics. There were some areas where we would have differed, but nothing major. Nothing that would have been a earth shattering.
From a Jewish perspective, what's he saying as far as Isaiah 53? I mean,
Trying to remember.
Why is it that the Jews don't believe that part of scripture, but they'll take other scripture and say, yeah, we believe this is what God is or it is. All of it.
Yeah.
Good or it's not.
He didn't, I don't think we had that passage never came up. So he never really discussed that one, but usually that concept of that verse not referring to the Messiah is a fairly new thing. And when I say new, I'm talking like 200-300 years. They kept pushing the fact that, this is there. This is got to be Messiah, but they would work around it and explain it away as not referring to, it's not Jesus. It's something else. And they would refer to it a different way. Some of them have talked about two different Messiahs coming, and they just can't handle this idea of a resurrected Messiah that's coming back to judge. That one, because that would have to admit Jesus. And so they explain it away. And then as they got further and further where they couldn't explain it away much too well, now they just say, this isn't even supposed to be there. We just write this chapter out. And so they don't even use it at this point. Many don't use it at this point. That'd be a good Craig Hartman. Come talk to us on this one.
When you were out of these touristy places like this, do you ever see, obviously there's not going to be conservative Jews interested in looking at locations of Jesus, but some of these places, would you ever see like the black hats and the tassels outside of Jerusalem? No, really.
Especially not in a place like this.
Yeah.
Any place that is Jesus related. Now you get to places that Christians go to, and they're all over the place. I mean, it could be, as you get into the temple, they're, the Orthodox are all over the place. As you go to places that have it, really the touristy areas, most of your Jews, the Orthodox aren't there. They just stick around Jerusalem, it seems like. But there are some Jews, especially when places where there'd be like places where David would have been. But if it's just Jesus, they don't really care. Usually the places Jews come to all these, okay, like case in point at Caesearea, where we were at that nice motel and right there on the seaside. On Friday, people start showing up, and around 3-4 o'clock before sundown for Sabbath, they go there, a place like that, so they can kick back and rest. All their food's provided, they don't have to cook, and they will pay hundreds of dollars a night to go up there just to get away. Heavy Jewish. I never saw any of the Orthodox. I just saw the I don't know what you call them. It's just no guys were ever in the hats. It was nothing. It was just, okay, we're Jewish, we're here, that's our nationality, but we're going to observe Sabbath.
Yeah.
And so they go up to get away. Same with Dead Sea. Good many Jews there, but you could tell based on what they were doing, they were not following the law. Very obvious.
We like our Catholic, Catholic friends who, they don't live the faith, but they won't eat fish on Friday during Lent,
Yeah. Very similar. Very similar. So.
I'm sorry, they won't eat meat, they'll eat fish.
Right.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, it was definitely culture. But as you get into Jerusalem, now you've got a whole different breed of people. And the Orthodox, they are exceptionally interested in everything that's theirs. And there's one place that we'll see, it was at I want to say Hezekiah's wall. One of the walls where you can still see the original wall that's been built, and in the wall, one of the houses, it's an apartment, and millions of dollars for this apartment that you can't do much with, but it's on that wall. And it is selling. People want it because of where it is. It's special to them, and they're serious. Those Jews are more serious than the ones outlined. So I don't know if that answers somewhat.
Yeah, I was mainly curious to know, are they wandering around? Are you seeing them all over the place, or they're just localized mainly in Jerusalem? That's only where I see pictures of them.
Right. That's where your Orthodox would be primarily. So when I got on the airplane in Chicago, you go to a gate and it's an area that's open and you just go to the gate.
Yeah.
Not with this one, you were in the airport and you went, they said, go to this gate, and you can see it, and there's another checkpoint. There's some other people checking you in. As you get in, there's another security area. They were serious about checking anybody coming in because there were tons of Jews with the hats and everything else. The guy I sat with and talked to him for a while was from California. He said, I was trying to witness to him, get the conversation going. He said, "You like my wife, she's Christian." And he didn't want to talk. But it was but the Jews in there, the whatever you call it, the locks and the hats and the coats, and they were everywhere going over there. And so they were making sure nobody was coming in with anything. And it was very tight. But that's in Chicago. So even in when I was in New York City, we were passing out tracts there once, and it was you get into the right section of town, it is Orthodox, very Orthodox.
I've delivered in points of New York West. That's all kind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to see them. And they want it easy to be seen. Even like Philip that comes here once has come here for some counseling and things like that, but he has the tassels hanging down off his belt. He doesn't wear, the Orthodox, he doesn't grow the locks. He'll keep the beard, but, he's more of one of take and pick what he wants. And that's kind of it's an awkward thing, but, so be it.
Is their church still around?
Not doing much, but yeah. Thank you. But he is, he follows what he knows to follow. And then you got to admire it. He takes a stand, and he has had attacks on him for his stand. And I appreciate that he's willing to take it. Okay. Well, we will close with that one. I think it's going to say something to me again.